I'm the former president of the NAACP in Garland, Texas, 23 years ago. I've seen both sides of the street. I was asked back in the late 80s to speak at a pro-choice rally. As a minister of the gospel for the last 35 years, I've always been against abortion. And so when I declined the invitation to speak in Dallas County at that time at the pro-choice rally, I noticed that my star, which was rising in the organization, began to set. And I told my wife, they don't just want to control my agenda. The NAACP wants to control me. And they want to use me to control a group of people. And when we look at where the organization has been totally co-opted now by the progressive liberals, the Democrat Party, and we see that they stand with principles that black people have been traditionally against, we see that the thorough brainwashing and the thorough co-opting of this organization has taken place. My revelation, the epiphany, actually began back in the late 80s.
And what do you think is the goal of the progressives to disintegrate the black community? What's their end game?
The black community has been a test tube model for the last 40 or 50 years. And the same type of tactics that have been fed into the minds of black people for that length of time. Let government be your assistant. Let government be your crutch, is now permeating through the rest of our population. When you consider that nearly 50%, including people who are on disability and people who receive welfare checks, and people who receive Social Security, including all of those together, when you consider that almost takes care of 50% of our population, it's easy then to understand that the rest of that 50% will not be able to sustain a government-supported population of 50% on the other side. And so, a socialist movement by this administration is definitely afoot. Can't people see what's going on here with Obamacare? Can't people see what's going on in our country? It's time for Americans to wake up.
So the ultimate goal of the progressives, they just want to get rid of what we know as Americans, traditional American society, and
right.
replace it with something totally different.
They wanted to replace it with a nanny state, a state where the government is the overseer. We used to call it Big Brother watching you. Big Brother is now everywhere in your life. And Americans, many of them, are marching to that tune gleefully toward a cliff that will definitely lead us to socialist government and will end our country fundamentally, as this president promised he would.
Now, just going back to what you're doing, how do you see your faith as being a key in fighting what the government is doing?
My faith is the same type of faith that was in those black and white founders of this country. When we go back to the Frederick Douglasses, when we go back to the Richard Allens, when we go back to the founding fathers in the 1700s, there was a faith within them that said we are endowed, we have an endowment, and that endowment is not given to us by government. It is given to us not by Republicans and not by Democrats, Whigs or Tories. It's not given to us by them. It is given to us by our Creator. So the idea of man having something, Americans having something that is unalienable, given to us by someone who does not want it taken away, is a part of the American fiber. And so it is time for pastors, preachers, to have the same type of courage that the founders, white and black, had back in the 1700s. And it is also time for a new type of courage, the type of courage that tells us that there is something greater at stake here than our fear of ostracism, being called a sellout, being called an Uncle Tom. There is something at stake here that we must step forward and defend, and that is freedom.
And as we wrap it up here, I want you to go back to what you just said about being called a sellout or an Oreo. How does the black community at large react when you come with your message that, going against what people like Sharpton and Jesse Jackson do?
They act the way they have been programmed to act by not only black liberals, but this is what they don't see. They act the way they've been programmed to react to me by white liberals who have an agenda. When they look at Tea Partiers, they see white faces. When they look at black conservatives or Republicans, they see white faces. But this is what most black liberals and black people fail to see, is that behind those Al Sharptons, behind those Jesse Jacksons, are not some black cartel. They are white progressives who in fact have an agenda to re-enslave a group of people who can in fact be free. I'm a free man. I go where I want to go. I do what I want to do, associate with who I want to associate with, and as you may know right now, I say exactly what I want to say. I'm free.
And my last question is, where should America and the black community both together start to turn things around from what's going on now into a better future?
Is to understand that America is the greatest success story that the world has ever known. Only in America can a person become an American. You can come here from Russia and you can become an American, but you can't go from America to Russia and become a Russian. That's why people want to come here, is because it is still the shining city on the hill. My grandfather, great-grandfather, was a slave. My grandfather could not read his name. My father only had a third-grade education. I, their son, am living proof that this land is the greatest success story. And we, as black people and as Americans all, are a part of that great success story.